Hey everyone, welcome in. Today we're going to dive into these excerpts you sent over from Renee DiResta's book, New Deview Invisible Rulers.
Oh, yeah.
It's a fascinating look at how influence itself has changed.
He really is.
You know, from Martin Luther and the printing press all the way to today's world of algorithms and like viral TikToks.
Yeah, you're in for a wild ride.
Yeah.
DiResta does a really good job, I think, of connecting these seemingly like disparate worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Like you take Martin Luther.
Right.
Most people, I think, would not connect 16th century religious pamphlets to understanding online influencers, but the parallels are really striking.
Okay, I'll bite. What does TikTok have to do with the Reformation?
So DiResta argues that Luther's success, it wasn't just about the printing press. It was about his communication savvy.
Okay.
He knew how to use the technology of his day to reach the masses. He wrote in plain language. He used illustrations. He even tailored his message to specific audiences.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound familiar?
It's true.
Yeah.
He was basically like the OG influencer, right?
Yes.
He knew how to work the tech and get his message to go viral, 16th century style.
Exactly.
But I mean, the printing press is a far cry from like the lightning fast world of social media, isn't it?
Well, and that's the fascinating part.
Okay.
So DiResta traces how influence evolved through radio and television.
Okay.
And those technologies, while powerful,
Right.
decentralized control,
Hmm.
you needed money, connections, even government licenses, just to get your message out there.
Right.
But social media, it's like everyone has their own printing press in their pocket.
No more gatekeepers.
Yeah.
And that's where the influencers come in, right?
Yeah.
They've got that direct line to their audience. Often in very, very specific niches. I mean, think about it. Like you probably follow some accounts on social media that feel tailor-made for like your interests.
Oh, absolutely.
That's no accident.
It's that relevance that makes influencers so powerful.
Okay.
It's not about like celebrity endorsements anymore. It's about relatability and trust.
Right.
These influencers, they build communities, they share their experiences, and they shape perceptions in ways that we're only beginning to really understand, I think.
They're not just selling products, right? They're selling ideas, lifestyles, even political beliefs.
Oh, absolutely.
The book mentions this guy, guitar guy, I think
Yeah.
it was, who just started posting his music online and like built this huge following.
Wow.
He didn't set out to be an influencer.
Right.
It just kind of happened organically.
Yeah, and that's a key point. Influence isn't always about having millions and millions of followers. Even micro influencers with smaller but more dedicated audiences can have a huge impact within their niche.
Right.
They have their finger on the pulse of their community.
Mm-hmm.
They understand its values, its concerns
Mm.
in a way that traditional media often can't match.
It makes you wonder, like, what do we as individuals do with this new reality?
Right.
It seems like such a complex web of like relationships and motivations.
Right.
Like, where do we even begin to like untangle it?
Well, DiResta argues that understanding the mechanics of influence is the first step.
Okay.
We need to recognize the forces at play, the ways in which our attention is being captured, and the motivations of those who are vying for it.
Mm-hmm. So it's not just about recognizing influencers, but it's about understanding the systems that kind of empower them.
Exactly. It's not just about the influencers themselves.
Right.
It's about the algorithms that determine what we see, the platforms that amplify certain voices,
Mm-hmm.
and really like the psychology of online behavior that makes us that makes us susceptible to these new forms of influence.
It's like there's this whole invisible world operating behind the scenes.
Yes.
Of our social media feeds.
Yes. Mhm.
Shaping our perceptions and influencing our decisions.
And like any invisible force, it can be used for good or for ill. That's why it's so important to pull back the curtain and understand how it all works.
You keep mentioning algorithms.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like they're a huge part of this invisible world we're talking about.
Right.
I know they decide like what shows up in my feed, but like how much control do they really have?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
You know, think of it this way, like an algorithm, it's not some like all-knowing being.
Got it.
It's a set of instructions. It's like a recipe, you know, for sorting through like mountains of data and deciding what you see.
Okay.
And the main ingredient in that recipe, engagement.
So it's less about showing me what's like true and more about like keeping me glued to the screen.
Exactly. Likes, comments, shares.
Right.
Those are the signals that algorithms prioritize.
Okay.
And often, you know, the content that gets the most engagement, it's not always the most accurate or nuanced.
Right.
You know, sensationalism, outrage, even fear, like those things, they grab our attention.
Right. It's true. Yeah. That makes sense, but it's also kind of terrifying, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Right.
And DiResta talks about this collision between what she calls the propaganda machine and the rumor mill.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how those lines have been blurred in the age of social media.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a crucial point because in the past you had, you know, propaganda like coming from the top down.
Right.
Governments, institutions, you know, pushing a specific narrative.
Right.
And then you had rumors,
Right.
which are more organic, you know,
Mm-hmm.
spreading through like local networks.
Right.
But now with social media, it's like those things can get all jumbled up,
Yeah.
amplified through algorithms and spread like wildfire.
Exactly. And it's not just you know, random people spreading rumors anymore.
Right.
The book talks about how even state actors are getting in on the game.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The book dives into how like countries like Russia have become like incredibly sophisticated at using social media to spread disinformation
Right.
and like manipulate public opinion.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You remember that story a few years back about an explosion at a Colombian chemicals plant in Louisiana?
Yes. Yes.
It went viral on Twitter.
Right.
I remember seeing those tweets.
Mm-hmm.
It turned out to be like totally fake.
Completely fabricated.
Yeah.
And the scary part,
Okay.
it was orchestrated by the Russian Internet Research Agency.
Mm-hmm.
They created fake accounts, fake news articles.
Mhm.
They even made a fake Wikipedia page to make the story seem legit. It wasn't just about, you know, spreading like misinformation.
Right.
It was about sowing chaos and eroding trust.
So they're not just pushing a particular agenda. They're trying to like undermine trust in everything.
Yes.
Make people question like what's real. It's like a real life online version of like gaslighting.
It really is a disturbing trend.
Yeah.
And it highlights how vulnerable we are to well-crafted disinformation, especially when it taps into existing anxieties and divisions within society. They've become experts at exploiting those vulnerabilities.
Right.
You know, using social media to turn people against each other.
It's like they're weaponizing our own psychology against us. And it's not just foreign governments, right?
Right.
What about like political campaigns here in the US?
Of course, yeah.
They've caught on to the power of these tactics too.
Absolutely. DiResta points out how some political campaigns, particularly on the right, you know, have adopted these tactics,
Right.
using influencers and social media to spread rumors, you know, sow doubt about election integrity and mobilize their base.
It makes you wonder, like, if everyone is shouting from the rooftops, you know, like how do we even know who to trust?
That's the $1 million question, isn't it? It's about becoming you know, more discerning consumers of information. You know, recognizing our own biases. And thinking critically about the information that we encounter online.
DiResta talks about this idea of media of one.
Yes, yeah.
Individuals building like huge followings by presenting themselves as like alternative sources of news and information.
Right.
What are the like implications of that?
Well, it's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
These individuals, often with no you know, formal training or expertise,
Right.
can amass, massive followings,
Yeah.
essentially becoming their own like news channels.
Right.
And because they often position themselves as outsiders,
Mhm.
fighting against the establishment,
Okay.
they can gain a lot of trust from people who are disillusioned with traditional media.
Sounds like a double-edged sword.
Right.
On the one hand, it can like it can give a voice to marginalized communities
Yes. Yeah.
and challenge existing power structures.
Right.
But on the other hand, it can also be a breeding ground for misinformation and conspiracy theory.
You hit the nail on the head. Without the traditional, gatekeepers of journalism, the responsibility, it falls on us, the consumers of information, to be more discerning.
Right.
And that's a lot to ask,
Yeah.
in the constant flood of information that we face daily.
So how do we navigate this new world of influence, this constant battle for our attention?
Right.
What can we do as individuals to avoid getting like swept up in the current? It feels like we're drowning in information.
Yeah.
Right. And it's hard to know like which way to swim. DiResta brings up this term attention economy. And I have to admit, it's not something I've thought about like a lot before.
Mm-hmm.
How does that factor into all of this?
Well, it's a brilliant concept, I think.
Okay.
And it's really, I think, crucial for understanding the world that we live in now.
Okay.
Imagine your attention is like currency in this economy.
Okay.
Every website, every app, every influencer is fighting for a piece of it.
So it's no wonder I feel like I'm constantly being like bombarded with like notifications and like clickbait headlines and autoplay videos.
Yeah.
It's all a battle for my precious attention.
Exactly. And because our attention is limited, the
Right.
most sensational, outrageous or fear-mongering content, it often wins.
Yeah.
It's basic psychology. We're wired to pay attention to things that are novel or emotionally charged.
So what do we do? Like how do we break out of this cycle where the most extreme voices kind of rise to the top?
Well, DiResta argues that we need to introduce more friction into the system.
Okay.
Right now it's just too easy for misinformation to spread like wildfire.
Friction. Okay, what does that look like in practice? Are we talking about like fact checking everything we see online?
It's more nuanced than that.
Okay.
Fact checking is important, but it's not enough.
Okay.
We need to slow down the spread of information, give people time to think critically before they hit the share button.
Right.
Imagine the social media platforms, implementing like circuit breakers, similar to what stock exchanges do when there's a sudden spike in volatility,
right.
to kind of pause the sharing of potentially harmful content.
So instead of something going viral, like instantly there's a built-in pause to let like things cool down.
Right, exactly.
And give people time to assess whether it's actually true.
Exactly. It's about creating space for more thoughtful deliberation and less knee-jerk reaction.
DiResta also talks about bringing back the concept of editorial gatekeeping.
Yes.
Which seems to have like gone out the window in the age of social media.
Right.
How would that work without like veering into censorship?
It's a delicate balance, of course.
Yeah.
No one wants to go back to a world where a select few control the flow of information.
Right.
But DiResta argues that platforms need to take more responsibility for the content they host.
Right.
This could involve promoting trusted sources, demoting or removing harmful misinformation, and being more transparent about how their algorithms work.
It's about finding like a middle ground between like unfettered free speech and responsible like content moderation.
Precisely. And it's not just on the platforms. We also need to equip individuals with the critical thinking skills to navigate this complex information landscape.
You've given us a lot to think about today.
That's been a pleasure.
It feels empowering to start like pulling back the curtain and understanding these invisible forces that shape our online world. What's like the most important takeaway you hope listeners walk away with?
That they have agency.
Okay.
Yeah. It's easy to feel overwhelmed and powerless in the face of all this.
Right.
But we can make conscious choices about how we engage online.
Right.
Be critical of the information you consume. Be wary of emotional manipulation, and be mindful of the information that you choose to amplify.
This has been a fascinating deep dive into the world of influence.
It has.
Thank you for guiding us through it.
You got it.
And to our listeners, remember, just because you see something online, it doesn't make it true.
That's right.
Stay curious, stay critical, and we'll see you next time.
Sounds great.